Welcome back to another Game Time Discussions. I'm Emery Cuzzy. I'm sitting with Cameron Selby, and we're going to be talking about the main slate for this weekend, Week 6. A lot of cool things happening this weekend. Of course, we have done a little bit better on Maine recently, which is always good. There are some very, very high totals, and there is one game in particular that is very high, and I think could still go over in the Commanders at Ravens. But I'm going to let you talk about the 5 highest totals on the week.
Yeah, so first off, 10 games late, so more buys coming, and then there's also an England game 8:30, so less games on tap. 10 game total. A lot of fun games, honestly. Commanders Ravens, didn't think it'd be as fun as it is, but it's the highest total, 52.5. Both offenses just going crazy right now. I feel like both Jaden Daniels and Lamar are playing two of the best quarterbacks overall this season so far, other than not honorable mention, but Sam Darnold,
Right.
respectively as well. But he is not on the slate; he's on bye. So yeah, two fun quarterbacks. It should be a lot of fireworks in this game. Problem is just like trying to figure out how is Baltimore scoring the 41 points like they did against Cincinnati, because it wasn't a ton of things. Like you had a nice call out with the Zay Flowers, but the week before scored a lot of points. He had 1 catch, 10 yards.
Right.
So Derrick Henry went off last week. He salvaged with the touchdown, and at the very end of the game shouldn't have even been a run because the holder shouldn't have even dropped the snap for Cincinnati. But he had a okay game, kind of the second game of the year where they're playing from behind, and he's just pedestrian. And he salvaged with 1 a touchdown, and then 2 a long run to put him around 90 yards because he was held in check for most of the game. Rashad Bateman has been very low on target share, but his snaps are increasing. He finally had a very solid, strong game last week. Mark Andrews is apparently tied in through Baltimore, so all that fun stuff. But I'm just supposed to talk about totals right now and not break each game down. So let me get through them, and then we'll kind of break down some of our favorite quarterbacks and stacks and stuff. So Lions Cowboys, super fun game. Obviously last year,
Yeah, I was going to say that.
That was Week 17, championship week for a lot of people to decide a lot of stuff. It worked out in a lot of favors for CeeDee Lamb fans because he went for 200 yards and all that fun stuff. There should be fireworks. Dallas coming off a great Sunday night quality win. Lions coming off a bye. I don't see how both of these teams aren't scoring 30 points.
Well, you can't forget, this is the game where they scored at the end of the game.
Yeah,
the offensive lineman scored, and then they called it back because he didn't tell him he was eligible. So we're going to have to run it back, basically.
Right, and then Carolina and Green Bay. I'm sorry, Arizona Cardinals and the Green Bay Packers at 50. That's the third highest total. Cardinals back-to-back games where they just kind of have been disappointing from a all holistic offensive production standpoint. Obviously, Kyler Murray had a 50-yard touchdown against San Francisco on the ground, but other than that, they were pretty pedestrian in terms of fantasy scoring. And then the week before, obviously, they were Commanders and Cardinals, and we were heavily in that game, but we were on the wrong side because the Commanders scored all the points and the Cardinals just did not keep up. So it'll be interesting to see that. And then Green Bay just coming off a game where they were the chalk of the week. And really, other than Tucker Kraft scoring 2 touchdowns, nobody panned out with Green Bay. So very interesting way to go. I actually don't know which of these games I like the least because prices is just kind of all over the place with all 3 of those games. Next is a divisional game. Should be pretty fun. Is the Falcons coming off a thriller last Thursday night against the Panthers with a revitalized, whatever you want to call him, Andy Dalton, who was very pedestrian last week, but it was against the Bears, and the Bears have a really good defense, so I don't really fault him for that. And then also he had another receiver that went down with an injury. And then the last game, another division game. This one is very kind of pukey, especially depending on the statuses of Richardson and Jonathan Taylor, but it's the Colts and the Titans. I'll make you uncomfortable in a little bit on that one.
Don't forget Will Levis too. He's a situation we have to monitor.
So that's what I'm saying, and so
gonna be gross.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in a little bit. But those are the 5 highest totals this week.
Perfect. Let me share the screen so that we can look at these teams. We're gonna start by talking about our studs. Our studs include the Lamar Jacksons of the world because of the fact that this is the highest game total. Lamar Jackson, as you can see, has 26.9 fantasy points per game. He's just been, Lamar. He can basically break a slate at any time, at any point in the game, or any point in the year. Last week he had 348 yards, got the bonus, He also had 4 passing touchdowns. He had 12 rushes for 55 yards. He did fumble twice, which is, I guess, the only bad thing that he did last week. But yeah, and they won.
I mean, he won the MVP last year, but from a fantasy perspective, it didn't feel like he deserved it. If you just a purely fantasy perspective, because he was just hovering about 20 points a game, but he was always priced in the high sevens, and it's just like we never really got to him, and it was just like, eh. But this year, he's back to the first MVP Lamar Jackson when he's scoring 25 points a game, and he's being more consistent, on the ground, and obviously as a passer, he's looked better than I've ever seen him. So he's been putting very steady points up, and he's going against Washington at home, where, I know Washington, we were heavily in on Kyler Murray, and he just did not play well at all against Washington. And then last week, obviously, they're playing Cleveland and one of the worst starting quarterbacks in Deshaun Watson. But let's not forget the first 3 games of the year and how they gave up 4 passing touchdowns to Baker Mayfield. And then my first of my 4 straight runs of puke stacks was Daniel Jones, gave up a couple of scores to him. And then obviously Joe Burrow had been playing terrible, or not terrible, but below his standards the first 2 weeks, and then broke out with the 3 touchdown, 300-yard game on Monday Night Football against the Commanders. So they've been giving up points. They've had a couple of runs where they kind of allowed quarterbacks underneath, but yeah, it's a really, really good spot for him. It's just kind of, again, he's a hard one to double.
Yes. You don't.
But,
I don't know who.
Prices are all over the place. There's a guy in the 6, there's a guy in the 8, there's a guy in the 5, there's 2 guys in the 4 that you can't really count on. And again, that's not even including Mark Andrews, who was fantasy darling for about half a decade for us. He is just no longer a priority, and I'm not just gonna try to guess his boom week anymore.
Right. Well, if you look at this, the main receiver is Zay Flowers. I don't agree. Again, only 1 week this year has Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson worked out together in the same line, and it was because of the fact that they were just winning by so many points. I don't think that happens again here. If you are going to stack Lamar Jackson, I think it has to be Zay Flowers, Isaiah Likely. Justice Hill is a interesting option, but we did that last week, or we talked about that last week. I don't think we actually made a line like that.
No, we didn't.
That did not work out. So, Lamar Jackson, 348 yards. Justice Hill, I don't even know. Not even 30 yards, I don't think. 2 for 8.
2 targets, 8 yards.
Yeah. After doing well. So
yeah, he's going to be a highly volatile play that he'll always be the under 5%er that whenever you can nail those occasional touchdowns or 7 target games, those are going to be huge, especially on a platform like DraftKings.
For sure. And then the next team we're going to talk about is going to be the Dallas Cowboys. We just talked about the game total and everything with that game, but starting off Dak Prescott, I'll let you take it over. That is your team.
I guess, well, we're getting there. If they win this week, maybe it'll be my team again.
Okay.
But yeah, Dak, he's been very solid, not spectacular. If you go to his game log just to kind of remind everybody how he's done this year, I mean, 19.7 is always a very solid average. He's had a game over 30, he's had a game over 20, and then a couple games where, very pedestrian. But this week, it's against Detroit. And Detroit, for about 2 years, has made us a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
On just betting against them not stopping the pass because they just can't. And Terry and Arnold just keeps holding, and nothing's really working for all the investments that they made in that secondary. And last time they played Seattle, gave up 400 total yards to Geno Smith. He just unfortunately didn't score twice because Kenneth Walker scored 3 times in that game, which you can't really predict. But, the week before was one against Kyler Murray, which Kyler Murray, another really weird game of just they never had the ball, but he was very good in that game. But then also Matthew Stafford went for 300 yards when he had a healthy receiving core for a half, plus Cooper Kupp going crazy. And then Baker Mayfield, fantasy-wise, wasn't great, but was really good. And obviously Chris Godwin went off and stuff like that. So Dak, very strong play. He correlated with CD, who went for 200-plus yards against Detroit last year in Week 17. Jalen Tolbert, game-winning touchdown, breakout game. We have a lot of him in best ball, so that's very fun that he has an opportunity with Brandon Cooks on IR to be a full-time wide receiver too.
Absolutely.
And he made the most of it. He's the identical price to Jake Ferguson, who has been another steady tight end. It's going to be really hard because I'm not going to be able to convince you for a triple stack.
Nope.
who to decide between the two. It is also worth mentioning Jalen Brooks, and I also wanted to point out Kevontae Turpin. You didn't select him, but $3,800.
Ran out of spots.
No, it's all good. $3,800. He hasn't been playing a ton of snaps. However, when he has gotten in, he's been getting the ball. Last week, he
Right.
had 7 opportunities on just, 22 snaps. So about a 27% opportunity share with the snaps that he's in. Obviously, he's their kick returner, so that's another possible bonus as well. But he's had a couple games where he's gotten the 14 points and whatnot, and so he's viable at 3,800. Not really many people are going to be on him, and he's worth a throw, especially if we can't get up to a Tolbert or a Ferguson.
Right. Next up, though, we're going to talk about the Jordan Love side of it. Didn't work out as much as we wanted it to last week. We're hoping he was going to be the guy, and he just kind of fell flat, unfortunately. But we do know where the ball's going. Jaden Reed is going to be getting a ton of targets. Romeo Doubs is going to be back. I mean, he was suspended, but is he going to actually
he's
play?
Back and is going to play.
Yeah. He's not injured by any means. It's just a weird situation that's going on there with them. But at the same price point, you have Dontavian Wicks. And then we talked about it. Tucker Kraft was the darling of the week at the tight end position, having his 2 touchdowns. He was mic'd up, which was pretty cool. I watched that yesterday or today, and it was pretty funny. He's a funny guy. He kind of reminds me of the George Kittle-esque type of player. So I like having him in my lineups too.
Yeah, so Arizona's defense is one of the worst in football. That's what we said at the beginning, and we were going to lean on it. But the thing is, they've been bad inconsistently in terms of like how they've been scored on in recent games. So like Detroit, for example, they just grinded clock, but had 250 all-purpose yards by their stud running back duo. And then the following week, obviously, against the Commanders, Jaden Daniels, basically almost 300 yards, a touchdown, 4 touchdowns on the ground allowed. But then last week, going against San Francisco, they allowed George Kittle to have 22 fantasy points. They allowed Brandon Ayuk, who has done nothing, to have 25. But then they held the other 2 in check. So it's kind of all over the place, but it's still going to be a defense that we target every week. I feel like every single week this year, they've been in the 5 highest totals, and it's probably going to stay that way the rest of the year.
Them and I was going to say Washington is a team we like targeting also, just like we talked about with Baltimore. But in this game, as you can see, these are the guys. And then you got to add Josh Jacobs, who got 19 attempts last week, which is good to see because he was kind of down after the week 2 when Malik Willis was starting. So
yeah, so with what's going to be interesting is that a lot of people are going to flock away from Dontavian Wicks because he was a chalky, very bad play. And it's interesting because this is the second straight week where he had 76% of the snaps. Second straight week, he led the team in targets. He just didn't come down with enough of them.
Right.
And while he's probably a pedestrian receiver that will never really amount to being a top 2 on his own team, he's still viable in fantasy. And so all it takes is him scoring the touchdown. And not every day are you going to see your tight end scoring 2 touchdowns, especially when you average about 5 to 6 a season. So he's in play. Romeo Doubs is in play. Jaden Reed obviously is viable. You kind of have to play him when you're playing Jordan Love at this point because like we loved him last week because the first 2 games and only 2 games that Jordan Love had played, he went over 130 yards in both games. He scored in one. He should have had 3 in the other. So he's been awesome. Josh Jacobs doesn't correlate as well, but he's still productive. And again, Arizona, 2 of those 3 games I mentioned, they were very more so bad against the run game than they were the pass game.
Yeah.
So even as a standalone play, Josh Jacobs is for sure in play as well.
Yep. And then the next one we're going to go to is one that I think I hate the pricing for the Atlanta Falcons because it's like almost too easy to get to them. And they feel very trappy because like, why is Bijan 6,600? Okay, well, that's fine. When then Drake London 67, that makes sense. But then you go all the way down to 5,300 to get Darnell Mooney after his giant week last week. He's gotten the targets. I find it a little trappy, and it's scaring me a tad bit.
Yeah, and then even Ray McLeod, who's been a darling for us on a couple showdown slates so far, he's only 4,300. You look at Kyle Pitts, he's 4,400. He finally had a breakout game. Literally the second play of the game, he hit his over.
Yeah.
And if you bet the under, you were very disappointed. He's not somebody to trust on a weekly basis, but finally just use him how he's
correctly.
supposed to be used. The frustrating one is just Bijan, kind of just like the entire drive, essentially in overtime. They had Tyler Algier in, and it's just like this is coming down to the wire. Why is he not in the game? And then obviously he came out on the last play where Kadero Hodge just burned one and had the game-winning touchdown reception and run. So, very reasonable options, especially the double stack portion of this. But Kirk Cousins coming off of one of his best games, and he is still absolutely slinging it. He can't push the ball down the field. You saw on a couple of occasions where it was 3rd and long, and he couldn't get it to the sticks. But you're still good at football if you can somehow throw for 504 touchdowns. So obviously he was QB1 on the week. It was awesome to see. One of my favorite games of the year so far, and he's in play because Carolina has just been bad. They've been decimated by injuries. Yeah, the only thing is just where the points going to come from, and they've allowed 10 touchdowns to the run game this year, which is most of the running backs rather, most in the NFL, and it's just a spot where you're going to target in some way, shape, or form this week.
Yep. So I just can't stand. Why is Darnell Mooney? And I just want to pull this up so that everybody can see it. He had 34.5 points last week. He's 5,300. That's almost like that feels so trappy. The whole thing is trappy.
He's
on here. He's
definitely the Rashid Shaheed of first 2 weeks.
Juwan Jennings, 45 points. Next week, what do you go for? Like 6? Like that's kind of how I feel with this Darnell Mooney pick.
Yeah.
So
I don't
nervous.
love him this week as a chalky play because I feel like he will be one of like north of 20% ownership, and I want no part of him if he is that
absolutely not
chalky. So, but yeah, very interesting nonetheless. Next up, Justin Fields, 5,800. Russell Wilson is back to practice this week, but he sounds like he's going to practice with the twos. It would be malpractice from an organization we know that is normally good in terms of getting rid of the bad eggs, doing the good things in the right way, and that's why they've never been a bad losing team under the Tomlin era. Justin Fields has earned, despite 2 straight losses, has earned this starting job, and he should keep it. Like it shouldn't be you had to be 5-0 or you weren't going to go because the last game or against Indy, obviously they lost at the end against a field goal. That was his best game as a Pittsburgh Steeler, and he was QB1 overall fantasy perspective on the slate. Last week against Dallas, leads for a game-winning drive, and then Dallas just has too much time. They score with 20 seconds left, and then what are you going to do? You can't really blame him for not leading them from that point. So he's really getting his feet under him. The only thing is just he's not a ton to work with other than, somewhat it's become pedestrian because Jalen Warren's been injured. Obviously, Roman Wilson started off the year injured, has not played at all. Calvin Austin's been inconsistent. George Pickens,
Van Jefferson,
Pat Freiermuth.
Right. Yeah.
It's just kind
rotating
of
door.
A bunch of men, and then obviously their offensive line woes because of injuries and stuff like that they've suffered. But him being 5,800 for what you just said about Darnell Mooney completely applies to him because he just went for 38 points.
Yeah.
And he's 5,800. And it's just like you're going against the Raiders who are just kind of imploding on themselves in terms of decisions. And, obviously last week allowing 34 points against a pedestrian Denver offense. And, the week before, again, they played Cleveland. If you played Cleveland, you probably did okay against their offense. But then 36 against Andy Dalton, that was another puke that I called out. And then Baltimore, who, Baltimore, I know they ended up upsetting them, but Baltimore torched them on through a lot of areas of that game. So I expect nothing different from Justin Fields in this game. It's pretty self-explanatory where the ball is going. It is Freiermuth, Najee Harris, and George Pickens.
Yep.
So stack 2 of them with him or just single stack them and just be happy with your 20-point outcome if Pittsburgh is going to win this game.
Yep. I want to put George Pickens in my line if I have Justin Fields. But otherwise, if you want a double stack, I think Freiermuth is definitely in play, possible.
Yeah, back-to-back games with the touchdown.
Yeah.
Obviously, way less targets this week
Didn't think you
than
could,
years past. So.
Yeah.
But what's crazy is that this week, the 5,000 to 6,000 range is really bad other than Justin Fields. So there's not really a ton of mid-tier plays. We mentioned Kirk earlier. He's 62. But it's time to get pukey, and we got a couple names for you in this one. One was
2 puke stacks.
One was a recent one, but then this first one, it don't matter who it is. They're 4,800. It's Will Levis or it's Mason Rudolph, but it's against the Indianapolis Colts. and you should feel very good at this point starting any passing game or passing attack against the Colts with the injuries they have and what they've done, because they've allowed 3 straight quarterbacks to throw for 300 yards. Caleb Williams, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence.
Mhm.
All of them have been playing either pedestrian or not known to be throwing for 300 yards.
Right.
And yet they're just getting decimated through the air. And then Green Bay, obviously, that was the Malik Willis first game that didn't really count. And then Houston, it was a close game that, CJ Stroud still played well. He just, didn't hit his 300-yard bonus, but 116 quarterback rating in that game, and then 170 all-purpose yards to Joe Mixon. So Tennessee, as uncomfortable as it is, as pukey as it is, you can stack a quarterback, whoever it is, because we've seen Mason Rudolph be a successful puke before. For under 5,000, his wide receiver one is 57, and then the most expensive skill player is obviously $6,000.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you know where the ball is going. It's going to be one of the 2 running backs. It's going to be Ridley. It's going to be Hopkins. It's going to be Tyler Boyd.
Yep.
And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Very self-explanatory. Really easy to get to. Kind of hard to see who you would want to bring back, especially with the unknown, with the injuries to both Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor, if they're going to play or not. But yeah, I really like them in a spot this week. It feels uncomfortable, but I've been nailing these if you do play multiple lines. So they are worth a flyer if you were doing a 20 max. I promise you, if they're going to be under 5% owned, which either one of them would probably be, they're going to probably return value at a $4,800 price tag.
Yeah, of course. And it allows you to get the guys that you want up higher. If you look at this team, as you can see on the board, 5,700 for Ridley, 5,100 for DeAndre Hopkins, 4,100 for Tyler Boyd. It's not expensive. It's basically free. And that makes it okay. With the next one, which I'll pull up now, is the New Orleans stack. And we're not sure yet who the quarterback's going to be, but we're going to put Hainer in there. I'm expecting it to be Spencer Rattler.
So the deal is
who is cheap as hell.
And it's unofficial. You got to go all the way down. He's minimum price, sir.
I'm there.
So,
I just got to find him.
So, yeah, with him, he's the guy that a lot of people had a positive buzz on. But he's just going in a defense against a spot where, Tampa Bay, 500 yards in their most recent game to Kirk Cousins on Thursday Night Football. And then Philly and Denver, kind of weird sample size because it wasn't a great, Denver bad offense. Philly without both Devontae and A.J. Brown in those games. So very skewed passing numbers in which they allowed. But then before, 300 yards to Jared Goff. And then week 1, 28 fantasy points to Jaden Daniels. So they've been decimated against quarterbacks this year. So for $4,000 or $4,800 that Jake Haener is, again, we kind of know where the ball's going. Taysom Hill, I doubt will play. But guess what? Juwan Johnson just had 5-6 targets on Monday Night Football and did very well. He's 3,100. Look at what he did. 8 points. I'll take that every single day. And he's a red zone threat as well. He was in the optimal line week 1 with just 11 points. Rashid Shaheed, apparently is wide receiver 1 in New Orleans with the way he's doing.
I agree.
I mean, he had the one weird dud where he had 0 receptions on 5 targets against Philly. But then, long touchdown week 1, long touchdown week 2, long touchdown on Monday Night Football. And then the other game in between that, 11 targets, 8 for 83. And also 2 rushing attempts. So
my best ball team loves that.
Exactly. So, and he's only 5,600. He's going to be a very popular play, but not many people are going to be stacking him with said quarterback. And then obviously Chris Olave. Not many people want to invest in him coming off a dud, especially when there's a lot of expensive quarterbacks, a lot of expensive receivers to get to, and even a couple of expensive running backs. So I said last week I was going to live in that 6K range at receiver. It's kind of hard to do that this week. So
yeah, I agree.
With him, he came off 3 straight really strong games, and then he had an absolute dud on Monday Night Football against Kansas City, who have been one of the best defenses. So now he's in a more positive game environment. They're at home against a team that's allowed 3 times 300-plus yards, all-purpose to quarterbacks, and a lot of fantasy points, fantasy goodness. It's really fun to do that. Won't be doing it a lot, but it's worth a flyer.
Oh man, let's puke it up, right? Let's get out of here.
And then it is worth mentioning Alvin Kamara.
Yes, of course.
He is the best PPR back you can ask for. I remember last year in a spot start in his first game back against Tampa, 13 receptions.
Yep.
Very inefficient the entire game, but he had 20 plus fantasy points because of that. When you're thinking about a rookie quarterback and you're going to have to do dinks and dunks and
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
get people comfortable and flowing, he's the perfect guy for a rookie quarterback that needs to just kind of get somebody to get out in space and get yards for them.
Right.
So he's worth mentioning, and he's viable as a pairing with said quarterback, and obviously you can afford him with a $4,000 price tag.
Well, we're going to do the running back studs now, and guess who the first running back stud was? It was Alvin Kamara. So we will just skip him because you just gave a great segment on him. He is best PPR back in football.
Mm-hmm.
The next guy, though, is Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs is 7,000 this week. Josh Jacobs at 6,700, who we talked about a little bit. And then Bijan Robinson, who we also have talked about. So a lot of the guys that were actually, it's game environments. Like we talked about the stacks for them, but it's also like we want their running backs also, not just the passing game because of the game environments they have.
Right.
Very high scoring.
So with Jahmyr, he might be my favorite bring back if you're doing a Dallas stack.
I was going to say that.
7,000 is very reasonable. Slightly concerning that the last 2 weeks he hasn't had a single target. But he started to get more and more goal line touches away from David Montgomery, which is a fun thing. But David Montgomery's been killing it as well. So he is in the play at 6,500. There's no ands or buts about it. But Dallas, again, just kind of have been susceptible to the run throughout the year. There have been back-to-back games where they've been okay. Obviously, Najee Harris, again, did not score this week, but he still gave up some yards. The week before, they held New York Giants in check with Devin Singletary. But before that, 150-plus yards against Derrick Henry. Alvin Kamara obviously had a 3-touchdown game. And then Cleveland, they were down by 4 touchdowns. So Jerome Ford didn't have a great game, but he salvaged with a lot of receptions.
Right.
So Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm not really concerned about the lack of targets in the last 2 games because they were playing from ahead. But, he's done well against them in the past. And 7,000 is very reasonable for a price tag. It's kind of hard to, if you hypothetically did a Dallas double of say Jake Ferguson or Jalen Tolbert, it doesn't matter. It's 5,000. You're going to play CD, and then it's hard to also put in Amon-Ra St. Brown at 8,100.
Yeah, that's what I was
7,000, very reasonable. And if you don't love that, David Montgomery 65 is in play as well.
Yep. And then the mid tier is actually another pair of guys we've already kind of talked about because they are on teams we want to stack and talk about. The games that matter, we're playing. That's kind of the point of this, right? Like we want the games that are going to have the high scoring totals that are going to get the most love. The first guy, because I need to get onto running backs, not wide receivers, is 6,000 in Tony Pollard. He's just been pretty good. He's just been really, holding on to this price tag for sure at 14.6 points per game. And when he does do well, he can go up to 18 or more. He had one bad game against Green Bay. They had the bye this last week, so they're coming off a bye, which is good for them.
Yeah, being at home against Indy. Obviously, Indy's been more susceptible to the pass, but they have also, given up stuff on the ground last week. Tank Bigsby had probably the best run of the entire day.
Mm-hmm.
If you saw his breakaway touchdown run, they had 3 scores in a span of 10 seconds.
Yes,
which was crazy because they had a play after a forced fumble, kicked a field goal, then first play on a touchdown, and then they turned it over. First play was his killer. He had 100 yards on 13 opportunities and 2 touchdowns. The week before, obviously, Najee was efficient with his numbers, but they gave up 2 rushing touchdowns to Justin Fields. And then the week before, obviously, Chicago before then, that was before DeAndre's breakout game. But also, Josh Jacobs, that was the game where he had 35 rush attempts, 150-plus yards. So, and then Joe Mixon, obviously 150-plus yards.
The first game, yeah.
So, they've been bad all around. And Tony Pollard, last time we called him out, it was obviously a dud against Green Bay. That was a weird game script that transpired, but very solid game script. I think they're favored this week.
Which is crazy.
No, it's actually Indy favored by 1. But I think Tony Pollard's in play if you want to go that route. But somebody I just mentioned, Najee Harris. Jalen Warren, doubtful. He's not going to play, but the Raiders have been bad against running backs. He's going to score at some point. He's getting basically all the touches as a running back. It's just a matter of time. And so for 5,800, if you're going to get 20 opportunities, you're favored, you're probably in a good spot.
Right. The next grouping is going to be the value plays. We're going to talk about Javonte Williams at 5,500. There he is. We're going to talk about Bucky Irving at 5,400, and then we'll just kind of group in the fact that we'll just talk about the Texans running backs as a whole. These are the first group of players that we haven't actually had a conversation about yet, though.
Yeah, so with Javonte, he finally had his 20-touch game. He still got vultured on a touchdown by Jaleel McLaughlin. But yeah, he had his 6 targets, which he's good with. He was efficient on the ground, 13 carries for 61 yards, and then 5 for 50. He's been a very good pass-catching back over his career.
Right.
Looks like he's only missed 3 of his targets in the entire season. But he's just been okay, but also he's yet to score. So it's kind of like Najee in the similar sense of just, you're getting a lot of opportunities. You're just not scoring. Obviously, week 3 was a dud because he fumbled, and Sean Payton doesn't like fumbling running backs, and it didn't work out for him. But other than that, 3 games over 10 points, 5,500. His price didn't go up enough, in my opinion. But Denver, home game, they're coming off a bye. He's basically the leader of the team in touches, and again, it's a matter of time until he finally punches one in. And if he does at 5,500, he's probably going to go for a similar output that he did last game.
Yep. Next up is Bucky Irving in a situation where he's actually the number 2 on the team, but he is slowly eating away from Rachaad White's touches.
Yeah, I really hope that his game-costing fumble, because obviously they were up 3 in regulation against Atlanta, and then he fumbles the ball. Not only do they go down and score, they don't even get the ball back. So he doesn't have an opportunity to redeem himself. I hope they don't, because a lot of times I feel like coaches too much are just like, you fumble one time, you're not playing. And I'm going to ride somebody else, even if they're not the best option for this team, just because to prove a point, when it's just like, you should be building him a little like, I'm going to give you the ball because I trust you.
Yeah, he's a rookie.
Again.
Yeah.
You're going to make those mistakes. You got to live with them. I still remember way back when, quick tangent of Kareem Hunt, his first career game, he was known for not fumbling. He didn't have a single fumble in college or in high school. First touch again with Kansas City, he fumbles. That was also the game that they were on the road against New England, put up 40. That was pre-Patrick Mahomes era, and he was, a top 10 RB the entire season. But Andy Reid at the time could have been like, you know what, maybe you're not ready for this spot yet. But he still was like, here's the ball, run with it, and he goes for 150 plus. Couple touchdowns, and just the rest was history, at least for that season. I just kind of feel similar ways. I hope that's the same, but he's been way more efficient. Other than Rachaad White's breakout 45-yard run or whatever it was, he again was held in check.
Inefficient.
So it's just like, it's a matter of time, and when that happens, he's 5,400. It's going to work out. Kareem Hunt, who I just mentioned, just played the Saints on Monday Night Football, had a ton of yards, and was the optimal captain for the night. So incredible situation if he is able to kind of start eating away at those snaps.
Yep. Last but not least is the Houston backfield. Let me grab $5,500 Cam Akers. We'll just talk about the backfield as a whole. They are playing New England. New England has kind of got, they haven't been terrible against the run game, but they've not been good either. They've given up 13th ranked, but the 118 yards per game. Cam Akers this last week. I'm really kind of not sure where to go with this backfield, but I think Dare Ogunbowale. Thank you. Yeah, I think he, with his pass catching ability, is really good. Cam Akers did get the touchdown though on the ground.
Yeah, so with Cam Akers, second time in 3 games where he's salvaged essentially with a touchdown. But even this past week, it was very telling because he didn't have north of 43% of snaps the first 2 weeks. Well, he took a dip all the way down to 32, and Dar was the only guy that touched the ball as a running back other than him, and he actually out-touched him against Buffalo. And so he has 15 carries on opportunities like that, and then he has 6 catches on 7 targets for 57 yards.
Yep.
It's PPR, and he's under 5,000. So if Joe Mixon misses again, he is absolutely in play as a tournament play. Also, Dameon Pierce, it's just worth noting because it sounded like he was really close last week to playing, and he didn't. So he's just going to murk things up even more. But I just expect one more week of Joe Mixon missing. It's just a matter of if Dameon Pierce, it's like an if-then statement. If Dameon Pierce does not play, either of them are in play, but maybe I might side with Derek.
Yeah, price-wise.
But if he does play, then it's just might stay away, but it's still you got to recognize it's a good spot. I believe they're the highest favorite on the entire slate, and they're on the road, which that has not worked out well at all for any single team this year. I think everybody that is a 6-point plus spread is 19-4 against the spread as a dog,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of outright wins there as well. So
Arizona.
Yeah,
Arizona
exactly.
this last
Shout
week.
out to you last week for calling that 7.5-point dog. So yeah, running back is kind of ugly down low this week, but it is pretty straightforward up top. There's a lot of good options in the 6-7K range, and even if you want to go all the way up to a Kamara or a Derrick Henry.
Yep. Let's build some lines.
Okay.
I want to know what stud quarterback you want to start with. We've got 3. It's Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, and Jordan Love.
I'm going to start with Dak Prescott in this one. I think I don't have confidence in like a win, but this would be a massive turnaround from perspective if they're able to pull this off. And obviously with their pedestrian run game and Detroit being a top notch against the run, outside of unless you're Kenneth Walker, I just don't want to play any of that, and that might be more inclined to throwing it.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a 300+ yard threat. Obviously, that correlates with CeeDee Lamb going off like he did last year. Again, 200+ yards against Detroit last year. And then Jake Ferguson has been as steady as they come. Jaden Tolbert breakout game last couple nights ago on Sunday Night Football. So a lot of ways to go. I don't know exactly what your preference would be on a double, but that is definitely how I wanted to start this build.
Probably Jake Ferguson is my preference, so I can take up my tight end spot. And then you want to bring it back with a Detroit player. Jahmyr Gibbs is a guy we've talked about as the guy that we would probably want to bring it back with. Like we said, him on Ross, $8,100. Save that $1,100 and get Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, that'd be my preference. I mean, like I said, despite the lack of targets the last 2 weeks, he has not had less than 16 points this year. And he also hasn't gone over 100 yards and a bonus on either rushing or receiving, but he's been steady, 4 touchdowns in 4 games. I'm just going to plug him in and just feel good about it.
Fair enough. Now let's talk about defense so we can get that out of the way. There's a couple defenses pretty low that we can get to if we want to. I know that, we can talk about Cleveland as a defense and New England, but truly, man, it's tough. It's tough. It's tough. It's tough down here. It's tough down here.
I was going to go out on a limb and actually go with the Patriots.
Okay.
Nico Collins going to miss. Joe Mixon going to miss. They're at home, and home dogs or
plus 7.
Yeah,
that's what this is going to be.
Dogs really have showed up and showed out this year. If you look at their game log, they're the one defense down low that have actually been formidable because they do create turnovers. Christian Gonzalez has been incredible. Yep. He missed his rookie year with an injury, and so, but I mean, they've had 3 sacks in 3 of the 5 games, multiple sacks in 4 of the 5, created turnovers. There's 3 of the 5 games with at least 2 turnovers. I'm looking for 5 points. Can you give me 5 points? As long as Houston stays under 28, which I think they're capable of if their top 2 options in the run and pass game are out, I think they're a sneaky good play.
Cheapest defense on the slate.
Yep.
Okay, so now where do you want to kind of talk about going next? What game is on your mind?
So obviously, you sounded like you were really in love with the Commanders and Baltimore game. It's really hard to do a running back with that game as a secondary option because there's not a lot of confidence in anybody outside of Terry McLaurin or Bryant Robinson. And then there's also the Rashad Bateman and Gross tight end,
maybe
but
Zay.
we already got figured out tight end. Well, you can try to put him in, but it's going to make you very uncomfortable with how we build the rest of our line.
Yeah, because he's 65.
And you won't be able to bring him back. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, because I want Derrick Henry. I want nobody on the Commanders without a Jaden Daniels stack, basically.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, you got to spend up to 64 for Terry, or you got to go all the way down to like Luke McCaffrey, Zach Ertz, Zacchaeus. Yeah, De'Ami Brown caught a touchdown this past week, but
he did. I don't know what I would do it. I don't know what I would do at running back if I didn't go with Brian Robinson. I guess he would have to be the pick if I had to do something because I can't get to. Yeah. There's no way I could go all the way up to 8,000 for Derrick Henry here.
Yeah.
So I'm probably gonna stay away. We'll stay away. Let's try something else.
We're gonna put in Bijan Robinson.
Okay. And then
again,
Carolina,
10 touchdowns, 5 games against running backs. By far the most. they've been bad. They're decimated with injuries, and just get right spot. He's the cheapest he's been in the entire season. Just gonna bet on him, buying low on him, buying the dip.
Carolina, a couple guys to mention. Deontay, he only had 6 targets this week, which we did not see for the last 2 weeks. He had 13 and 14.
He was locked up against one of the best corners in football.
Right.
And obviously, when they did bench Andy Dalton later in the game, it just kind of it's Bryce Young again kind of thing. So he didn't really get much look, but he's still in a good spot to possibly be a bring back if we can get up that high. I'm not sure if we could in this build.
I was gonna say Chuba. He's 63. Just because he has been so efficient.
He's been great, but also Jonathan Brooks, I would anticipate maybe flirting with being back this week. Okay. So it's just kind of a wait and see with that one.
Cool.
But also Xavier Legette left the game last week with an injury. Jonathan Mingo has played a ton of snaps, but has not killed it by any means. But he is under 4,000, so he's worth a look as well. If you did want to force a bring back, right. I don't necessarily think we have to.
No. I was just looking around, trying to talk about the game and the Panthers.
I will say the optimal line last week was doing Chicago running back against Carolina, and then a bring back, which was Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah.
So
back-to-back running backs for sure.
Unfortunately, we didn't do that, even though we talked about it on
the
stream.
That's okay. Happens. Let's talk about then maybe one of these contrarian plays. You have the Texans in New England. We have New England. I don't really want a New England running back to correlate.
I'm
I don't
intrigued
think.
by Demario Douglas.
Okay.
Drake May has been announced as the starter. He will make his debut. Houston's given up big plays this
44.
year, and so basically any of these Pacers receivers we actually broke down as a value just because they could be the guy that just kind of. Mm-hmm. I think one of them will be a viable 10+ fantasy point play.
Yes.
I don't know who it will be, but it could be a pissed off Jalen Polk that thinks he scored a game-winning touchdown. It could be Demario Douglas who helped us take down a showdown a couple weeks ago. It could be a veteran like a Kendrick Bourne who's working his way back from injury. But, I mean, Demario Douglas, 2 of the last 3 games, 9 targets, 6 catches, 7 catches, 59, 69 yards. He just can't score a touchdown. Basically, that's his MO.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he can with Drake May.
Fair enough. So let's throw him in there. Keeps our money down a little bit. We don't have that much to work with, so kind of have to hold some of it off. Where would you like to go otherwise? We could also, go Jalen Tolbert here and put a cheaper tight end.
Yeah, that's something that I haven't really explored. We were getting close with my first look, and again, we don't have to build it like that. But there are a couple guys down in the 3K range that I do like as tight end. Cade Otton has had 3 straight solid games, and he's only 3,500. Juwan Johnson, again, coming off another really solid game, and then he's going to be with a backup quarterback that I don't mind there.
Okay.
At 3,100. I don't know. Basically, just want to let you know what I finished up because we are 7 for 7 right now, and they don't correlate. But I went with Trey Tucker in my receiver at 42. Obviously, he had a bad game this past week, but he still had opportunities, and they should be trailing.
Yeah, he'll be fine. He'll be fine.
And then the last guy in. No, sir. It was DeAndre Hopkins.
Oh, yeah, against in
just
Tennessee.
Because Tennessee, again, 3 straight games of 300+ yards against very not mediocre, but quarterbacks you're not accustomed to seeing throw the ball a ton. And, we like all those quarterbacks.
You weren't going to try to triple stack, were you?
No, well, listen, you wouldn't let me. That's
I
why
would not,
I didn't do that.
but guys, it's
viable.
there. It's
I
there.
mean, if I'm saying that Dak is going to throw for 300 yards, it's going to be CD for 150, and it's going to be, the 150 has to go to somebody. It's probably going to go 60 of it's going to go to Jake, and then hopefully we can get some more Tolbert love. I'm just saying it's viable.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
If we're doing an afternoon only, I might force you to play.
Okay, we'll talk about it. Right. Let's go to a different quarterback. Let's talk about one of our pukes would you like to mid-tier first? Who's your favorite quarterback on this whole slate? I guess.
Well, it is actually Dak.
It's Dak. Okay, so what about your mid-tier? Who's your favorite mid-tier between Kirk and Justin Fields?
I would say Justin Fields.
Okay, he's cheaper and he makes things work. I would completely understand if you would have said Kirk after 500 yards.
No, yeah, I mean, I think he'll just be more popular. I'm playing the ownership game that I just think that Fields will be a little still more underappreciated. So will George Pickens because he still hasn't scored yet.
Single or double?
Let's single for now, and then if we have to, Pat Freiermuth at 43 is another reasonable tight end.
Yeah. Okay, so bring back on the Raiders would probably have to be Trey Tucker
Yeah. Or
or
if you want to
Jacoby.
go all the way up to Brock Bowers, because he is officially the highest priced tight end.
That's what he should
well
be.
deserved.
That's where he should be.
Yeah, he's been a
6,000.
lot
Okay.
of fun this year. But let's put in Trey Tucker for now. But if we can get frisky,
What's
later.
Jacoby's price?
I don't know. He's had a couple duds.
Yeah, he probably
back.
didn't go up.
54.
That's not bad either. I wouldn't hate that. 4,200. Trey Tucker makes it easier though. Running back wise, the guys that we kind of want up top, of course, is Bijan. Do we want to just throw Bijan in there?
We can if you want to.
Okay, 66.
Force you.
Okay. I also want to get Gibbs in some of these. Maybe actually, let's do Detroit Dallas on this one.
Okay.
As our second.
Well, yeah, I don't think that's a game that you can fade at all.
Yeah, as our second.
So, as a standalone option, who would you prefer? Are we going all the way?
Can I go all the way?
I mean, we can try.
Well, shoot. Let me throw him in there. Let's see my defense. Go all the way to the bottom. Patriots. Yeah, I probably could do that, actually.
That's fine. Okay, and then let's do a fun thing. And I don't know what that fun thing is yet. But
Javonte Williams. Is that fun?
It's uncomfortable, but it can be fun.
Well, it depends. Can we get this? I think we can, because tight end's cheap. We can get a cheap tight end.
How about you go all the way into the 3K range, and what would be your preference between Cade and oh, I know what to do. Teacher. Okay. Go Cade Otton.
Okay.
And then Mr. Rashid Shaheed.
Perfect.
56,
right? Is there a defense you'd rather go up to?
I mean, let's see the options. 28 or below. If it's Anthony Richardson, you never think like, oh, if it's the
starter, yeah.
But I mean, he's a turnover-prone guy that just, I mean, I don't know. Tennessee's pretty solid again all around,
right,
as a defense. So they were obviously optimal on the primetime slate the other night against the Miami Dolphins. So they're in play. I don't know if there's one that I prefer more than Patriots.
Okay, it's fine.
But you can also, if you wanted to flirt around other ways, you can do that. Obviously, Trey Tucker's kind of he's the bring back in this scenario, but you get up to 46, and there's like a Demario Douglas again. There's Ray who's played pretty steady. There's Michael Wilson who's been pretty good. Or you can just leave it like that. I mean, it's a first look. We don't got to finalize anything.
Yeah, for sure. I was gonna say, what's right here with the running backs? I don't think there's anything I'd rather get to. No. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think this would be the line then to start it out, just kind of like our first look, what we said. So, okay. And then a puke stack. Let's talk about it. Which one would you rather go to?
Well, I think it's more fun. Like, it's uncomfortable doing a Mason or a Will Levis.
It is,
but it's more fun doing the New Orleans.
Well, it's cheaper to do Mason, Will Levis too. It's a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, it is.
So,
but then like the Calvin Ridley, even though I like him as a play, DeAndre Hopkins, I like him as a play. Tony Pollard. It's not like I'm like, oh, we're gonna force him in way overweight and into the field. It's gonna be like probably even if not a little bit more, but it's gonna be based on no one wants to play him more so than like Rashid Shaheed's gonna be very popular, and Alvin Kamara is gonna be very popular.
Right.
But nobody's going to stack them with a hypothetical Spencer Rattler, which is what we're about to do.
4,000. Let's go find him. And we do expect that Spencer Rattler will play.
Very rarely are you going to be able to play a $4,000 quarterback. More often than not, it has worked out for me when I have had those occasions. So I just want to see what we can build. Obviously, we're going Kamara. And then do you want to go the chalky Shaheed, or did you want to try to get up to Chris Olave?
No. I actually like Shaheed more.
Okay.
So Tampa Bay, did you want to go Cade Otton? Or do you want to go with one of their receivers?
A lot of money.
Did you want to go with one of the receivers?
Let's try Cade Otton and grin ear to ear and see how much money we can have.
Well, shoot, why not go to the bottom of the whoa, there you go, all the way down.
Let's go to the bottom at about five spots and
see what happens.
6,700 the rest.
Yeah, that's a lot. So that's pretty easy. Let's build it out. Let's go to running back. I'm sure we want some of these guys up top. We do have one guy up top. We get Derrick Henry against Washington. We get Jahmyr Gibbs in this Dallas game and get a bring back there.
I mean, once again, we're gonna have money. Are we just gonna just put Gibbs and Lamb again? They might have to do the Lambs.
Let's see.
Okay. Well, so we got about 5,600 left.
That's solid.
What is in the high sixes range that intrigues you, or is there anything at all?
God.
Or do you just kind of want to go to mid-tier?
At wide receiver, maybe at running back. Maybe there's a running back that I like it in that range. Let's see. Because, I mean, I could always just go like this.
Like a Josh Jacobs.
One of these two, yeah.
And down to, what is that, 4,500? This Demario Douglas territory.
Yeah.
That's
Trey Tucker.
Trey Tucker.
You just want raw points.
Yeah. Always got to mention Greg Dortch for Mr. Dusty.
Yep, absolutely.
But yeah, so
always
it's
an
really
option.
fun. Look at that stars and scrubs kind of build.
Woo. Yeah, and then you could also just say, hey, I don't want to play CD in this line. You could go somewhere else. You could do the, CD. I want to try something.
Oh, for the record, you can get up to Jaden Reed with that same build.
Yeah,
because he's 7,000. If you like him more than Josh Jacobs, but continue.
I do want to try something. It's going to be, because we did play this line, why not get a little bit of this craziness? Play both the top wide receivers in this line.
Mm-hmm. And then?
Let's go to running back and check it out.
Ooh.
It's going to be like the $6,000 guys. Maybe a Najee and a
Ooh,
yes. That's
yes.
exactly. Thought that would be cool.
That is fun.
All right.
That's a fun one.
But yeah, you can mix it up because you do have so much money. You can do basically anything with that line. That line has a lot of opportunity.
Right. Just think it's in play. I mean, if we do 3 to 5 lines, we're going to be way over the field just doing one.
Spencer Rattler line, yeah.
Jake Haener / Spencer Rattler, whoever you want to, just because we know where the ball's going. And all the people that we mentioned, Kamara, Shaheed, and I bet you Chris Olave will still get some ownership.
Yeah.
Juwan Johnson because of his big game, especially if Taysom Hill's out because they think that correlates for some reason. He's going to get ownership at $3,100. And so nobody's going to pair them. So why not?
You know what I just thought, though? I have a feeling that Spencer Rattler will be in the optimal line. But I bet, and this is so gross, but I have a feeling he is not stacked at all.
I mean, last
why not,
week,
right?
Last week, Lamar Jackson was in the optimal line, no stack, double bring back with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
Yeah.
So weird stuff happens at the top, but guess what? We haven't been at the top in $1 million line because we would obviously be in a much bigger warehouse.
Yes.
With a lot of fancy posters and stuff.
Cool stuff.
So we will get there one day, but so far we've been doing well, just kind of building nice, consistent lines and cashing.
Yeah.
So, we got to try to correlate as much as we can.
No, for sure. I'm just saying, I have a feeling that someone will play in 150 max, Spencer Rattler, unstacked, and then just pit everybody.
Just try to pick as many top plays as you can.
Yeah, because why not? If he gets 12 points at 4,000.
That's the highest value.
It's 3 eggs. That's great. But yeah, so this is, just our first look. Hopefully y'all enjoyed it. Let me get out of this screen.
I mean, just for the record, I played 2 years ago Clayton Tune at $4,000.
I remember that.
And he had a rushing touchdown the first quarter and he got concussed. He played 1.5 quarters and I still cashed with that line.
Yeah.
Just because everything else worked out. And so it works. Very rarely, like I said, do you get to play a quarterback for minimum price. So just have a little bit of fun, man.
Who came in for Clayton Tune in that game afterwards? Who was?
I remember.
I mean, we've had KJ Hamler start at quarterback before, so
yeah.
I mean, we've done crazy things in the NFL, but I don't remember who played. I mean, I remember Ian Book on Showdown. Ian Book, Ian Book, and he was overpriced at 6,000. He was awful. But yeah, we appreciate y'all hanging out with us. Go like, comment, subscribe. Tell us who y'all's favorite plays of the week are, because it is, early in the week. We won't release this. We'll release this on Wednesday, but it is Tuesday. We don't have all the information that we need. So please just let us know, like, this is the guy that I think will have a good day. This is why. And we'll answer. We'll talk to y'all and we'll get y'all in the discussion. Join the Discord. Talking about that.
We can't thank you enough. Again, what Em said, please just join all the socials that we have. Just interact with us. We're building this community stronger and stronger every day. And we're getting better and better as we do this on this platform. Just make sure you're tuning in on the live stream Sunday mornings
Yes.
When we talk about 2.5 hours of anything football, whether it's pick'ems, props, slates, random fun,
Start sits.
doesn't matter. And then, yeah, any questions you have about your last man in or your head to heads against your idiot league mates, we will help you out as best as we can, and hopefully not cost you money, because it is fun doing what we do, but it's even funner when you guys interact with us. So
Yeah, absolutely. So we will see y'all next time, and look out for our other videos that are going to be coming out this week. Dustin and I are going to be doing a prospect review video for halfway through the season, basically. And then, like Cam said, Sunday morning, we will be answering questions and doing our live stream.
all right, later, guys.